Good evening, all. I have discovered another gem out on Tubi. Now, this is a movie that I was aware of, but I had not seen because it was not available on free streaming until now, and that's Strawberry Mansion from 2021. This movie was written and directed by a guy named Albert Burney and Kentucker Audley, and that's the strangest name I've ever heard. Kentucker, Kentucker. Sounds like either somebody pushed the words Ken and Tucker together, or like somebody from Kentucky. That's real name Kentucker is from Kentucky. It sounds like, but he's actually quite good in this. As people know who know me, I like movies about dreams and dreaming, and that's what this is about. I have very bizarre dreams myself, and I always have. And this is a movie about bizarre dreams and strange things. It takes place in a kind of it's a science fiction movie, but a very surrealistic. It takes place in 2035, in an era where it's kind of dystopian. People can record dreams, and dreams are also taxed. And there's a guy whose job it is, his name is James Preble, played by Kentucker Audley, who is, it's his job to audit people's dreams, make sure they're paying their taxes. And he finds out there's this woman who lives in the self-titled Strawberry Mansion out in the country somewhere. And her name is Arabella, Arabella Isidore. And he goes to see her and explains, I have to do an audit of your dreams because you haven't been paying your taxes, and that's, a federal crime. And she has her dreams were recorded on, most of them are recorded on these like tiny little crystals that are about that big, but she's been recording them on old-fashioned VHS tapes. And so he has a lot to do, and he has to use an antiquated machine to see them. That is sort of a box that fits over his head with like two lighted Dixie cups over his eyes. I thought it was really funny. Some of the special effects in this are intentionally very cheesy. Some of them are actually fantastic. So he's going through these, and you see him enter the dreams as sort of like a shadowy figure. And he looks around, he's got this, a computer in his brain that can calculate, like in one something, somebody's playing a violin, it says violin cost $1,500, tax 25 cents. So he's going through and seeing these things that pop up in the dreams and calculating the taxes due based on what items appear in the dreams. There's also in the beginning we see one of his dreams, and there's a character named Buddy who is actually played by this guy Albert Burney, and Buddy always brings him things. He brings him physical objects. I'm sorry, Buddy's played by Linas Phillips, who's one of the producers, not Albert Burney plays a different character. But he shows up and he brings him this stuff called, I wrote it down, the names of some of these things because they're funny. Cap'n Kelly's Chicken is K-A-P''N, like a pirate kind of name, Cap'n Kelly's Chicken. And soda called Red Rocket, which apparently is strawberry flavored, or it's red anyway, maybe it's cherry flavored. But and because this apartment that he lives in the dream, is bare. There's nothing there except like furniture. It's all colored kind of a cheesy kind of a pink color, and there's nothing except like empty bottles. The refrigerator's empty, and so this friend, Buddy, is constantly bringing him like commercial products. And as we find out later, as he's going through Bella's dreams, he calls her Bella. She insists that he stay in her house, and she lives there alone with her tortoise, Sugar Baby, and that's it. He asks her about, well, don't you have a family? She reveals that she has a son, but they're not very close, and that her husband was a very evil man. He says, unfortunately, my son picked up those traits. And she had a second marriage that worked out a bit better, but her second husband has passed away. One of the things she and her second husband came up with is a kind of a strange-looking helmet, which, looks like a bicycle helmet decorated in like tinfoil and wires that light up, and it's all different, colors, blue and green and red and gold. And she says, this blocks the ads. And he says, what ads? She says, we discovered that the government is beaming ads into people's dreams. Haven't you noticed? And he says no, and you know, she reveals this to him by he's in a dream, and people are in a restaurant and they're eating, and he sees these buckets of chicken, but he can't see the name on the chicken. It's obviously this Captain Kelly's chicken. There's a funny scene earlier where he's at an actual Captain Kelly's restaurant, and the animated chicken mascot is asking him, you know, would you like a chicken shake? He says, what's a chicken shake? It's a shake made of chicken and gravy. That sounds like the most disgusting thing I've ever heard of. And he says, no, just give me a big bucket of chicken. I said, okay, you want to add $1, make it a mega bucket? And he said, yeah, fine. Okay, I'll give you a mega bucket with extra gravy and a red rocket. And he said, oh, give me one of those chicken shakes too. I thought that was really funny. Everybody's in this movie is constantly eating this stuff, which looks like KFC, basically. It probably is KFC. But this Captain Kelly's chicken, and the motto for Captain Kelly's chicken is, it's your clucky day, which is pretty funny. It reminds me in some ways, and again, there are quite a lot of parallels to, of the movie The Dark Backward, where a very strange movie with Judd Nelson, where they're constantly advertising for this product company called Mrs. Blump's. And there's like Mrs. Blump's everything, Mrs. Blump's squeezable bacon, things like that. I thought they were really funny. But they sell, Mrs. Blump's detergent. Everything is under this auspices of this company, Mrs. Blump's. But in this movie, it's these things, Captain Kelly's chicken, Red Rocket, a bug spray called Spider Death, and a toothpaste called Teeth. Some just really cheesy stuff. So one of the underlying, commentaries, as it were, is that society has become very, overly, conspicuous consumerism to the point of, people are just buying crap, that doesn't really do anything. It's like they buy these colored cartons that are just empty, and these things are sold to them through their dreams. Later on, we find out. He's going through the, Preble is going through the audit, and he's talking to Bella occasionally. He sees dreams of her as a young girl, and the older Bella is played by Penny Fuller, and the younger Bella is played by Grace Glowicki, and she's very beautiful, Grace Glowicki. And there's one scene where he's in this dream about being in the pink apartment, and Buddy shows up, and young Bella's trying to get in, and Buddy won't let her. And we find out there's kind of a reason for that. And the reason is that, like I said, she and her husband invented this helmet, and when they put on the helmets, it doesn't happen at first, but it starts blocking the answers. Why you couldn't see the name of Captain Kelly's chicken on the buckets in the restaurant. It was just a bucket of chicken because it took the advertisement out, and that's something that the government doesn't like, obviously. And we find out that her son, Peter Bloom, is the CEO of the company that runs these ads, and is very angry that they have discovered the way to block them. And therefore he plots to, his mother, Bella dies a natural death, and Preble discovers her dead in the morning. Now Peter's come, and he wants to collect the estate, which he now owns the Strawberry Mansion, and declares that the audit's over. Well, and his son and wife are going around, through Bella's room and tearing up all of her tapes. He says, "You can't do that. The audit's not over, and I'm going to have to report you to the government now. That's a federal crime." And he starts rewatching this dream about young Bella that he likes, especially this dream where she has a little caterpillar crawling over her hand, and she's talking to this man who's kind of made out of grass, and we find out later in the movie that's him underneath all the grass. I don't know what that's supposed to represent. Maybe going back to nature, being a more natural process, not being surrounded by all this artificial crap that he is in the outside world. So he hits him in the head with a bowling pin while he's watching the dream, and knocks him out. as they start taking all the stuff out of the house, he and his wife and his son are all kind of evil, and then he wakes up again, and again he hits him again with the bowling pin, and this time he sets the house on fire and leaves him there to die. In his dreams, since he's still in this dream state, he is now the captain of a ship which is run by two humanoid rats named Richard Rat and Marcus Rat, who are played by, I'll tell you in a minute. Richard is played by Shannon Heartwood, and Marcus is played by Matt Heartwood. And they're going on this voyage on an old-fashioned like sailing schooner, big, huge thing, like a brigantine, an enormous ship. But there's only the two sailors to run it, and him. He's the steersman and the captain. You can see him in the captain's uniform. They go on a journey that takes 7 years, and they still haven't found Bella. Meanwhile, this is, of course, just a dream, and the house is still burning down. And he keeps seeing her in various incarnations, telling him, you got to get out, the house is burning down. The ship is tipped over by this huge, like, blue demon, and then the blue demon, the whole scene shrinks, and he's no longer on the ship. He's with the blue demon and Della, and the blue demon has Bella, the young Bella, captured, and she's in irons. And he's doing things. The demon is, like, cooking meat on a frying pan, and an advertisement shows up in that. And there's something funny in here that's a little bit, I don't know if this is conscious, a little bit of a nod to Twin Peaks, in that the demon and some of the other people are talking backwards, and there's also a red room where people talk backwards. That's obviously a almost direct link to Twin Peaks, with the character played by Michael Anderson, who was the dwarf who talked backwards. But so there's an ad for salt, and the salt ad is another blue demon who also talks backwards, is talking to the other one. And so you see the blue demon takes salt and starts putting on this raw meat, and he just has like a cattle skull for a head and two glowing eyes, and a sort of a hairy mane, blue mane. And despite the fact he's keeping Bella on a chain, and he makes her serve him blue wine, and sort of Preble blue wine as well. And then he goes to bed, takes the chain off of the key to the chain off of his neck, hangs it up on a hook, and then he says his prayers, and he goes to bed, and he's got a little sheep stuffy. I thought that a demon that has a stuffy is kind of cute. And then Richard steals the key, or Preble rather, and frees young Bella, and they escape out to the sea. And she's telling him, while they're going on this sort of idyll, that you're still in the house and it's still burning down. You still have to get out. And he says, no, I just want to stay here with you. And they're in love now, and they never show them making love, but it's implied. And he says, really, Richard, you have to get out. The house is still burning. And when you stop breathing, when you begin to stop breathing, think of me, and I'll come to you, and I'll help you. I'll save you. And so that starts to happen, and he does. And then let's see, I'm losing track of it here. She says you have to turn yourself into a caterpillar. He says, what? She says, you have to turn yourself into a caterpillar. That's the only way for you to escape. He says, okay. Turns himself into like a giant caterpillar, and he's going across the ocean. And then he says it takes him several decades to cross he comes to a desert. It takes him decades to cross the desert. And then the snows come, and he starts, several centuries go by, and he's going through this enormous snowstorm. And he starts to turn back into his human self. But now he's very cold. But he has a coat that's made out of his former caterpillar skin, I guess. And that's keeping him warm. And then he, he manages to survive, and then he goes back to the house, and Bella brings him the helmet to block the ads. Buddy comes and starts like deluging him with these ads, and he's buried under this like mound of like crap, these empty bottles and egg crates and milk jugs that are in like bright neon colors, and he's like buried under them. And this is obviously, the comment on rampant consumerism. He's buried under these empty containers full of, nothing. And then Bella brings him the ad blocking helmet, and that makes Buddy and all this crap disappear. They end up in like a party, and Preble had hallucinated evil versions of Peter and his wife and his son, as like Peter was like a werewolf and his son was like a zombie and his wife was a witch, and now he sees them as normal people, and Peter's actually smiling, and everybody's there. There's this waiter who had a frog head, which that kind of reminded me of Forbidden Zone, another very bizarre movie. And then the Blue Demon and everybody, all these tape people that are just made out of videotape, and a couple of grass people. They're all here, and they're the rat sailors, Marcus and Richard, are there, and they salute him, and he salutes them back, and they're clapping and cheering, and but he says there's something wrong. Preble says there's something wrong, and he and Bella start ascending to the stars in this pink balloon, but then they start disintegrating because he remembers he's feeling the flames, and he's starting to become, she says, remember the ice cream, remember the strawberry ice cream. She had, the real Bella, the older Bella, Penny Fuller, had made him lick a strawberry ice cream cone before she would allow him to come into the house. And he turns into a tiny, tiny grain of strawberry ice cream and lands on the same ice cream cone and licks the cone, and then he wakes up. And now he's in the burning house, and he gets out, but he goes back to save the tortoise and the one videotape that remains, a dream that had a gold star on it. That was one that Bella particularly liked. It's, herself as a young woman with this grass person, and they're having like a date and a romantic interlude. And so he saves that tape and the helmet that blocks the ads and runs out of the house, and sadly he watches the house burn down. Then he goes back to his rather staid apartment, very modernistic looking, and he's got all kinds of cues. One whole wall is actually a TV, and then he plays the tape again and goes back into this dream where he and the young Bella are in love, and he's the grass person. He's reading her a poem, and the last thing you see is that they walk hand in hand back and to the Strawberry Mansion, which has been restored because again it's just in the dream. And he now has Sugar Baby in a little terrarium, so he saved the tortoise. Really good movie. I thought it was really interesting, very romantic. The visual effects are incredible. I wanted to give a shout out to the art director, whose name is Lydia Milano, and the set decorator, Paisley Isaacs, because the set decoration is just fantastic. The sets, the construction, the special effects are all just really top notch. As I said, I love things about dreams because I have weird dreams myself. So, although they're not quite this well, some of them are, quite frankly, and I'll talk about that later. But again, I just wanted to highly recommend this movie, Strawberry Mansion from 2021, available free on Tubi, and I highly recommend that you see it.